I apologize for not noticing, and by all means, speak up.
And if that's all the electeds, we can move on to Lake Ballinger Forum staff. There's a couple here.
I'll go. I'm John Featherstone, Surface Water Wastewater Systems Manager for City of Shoreline, and pleased to be here.
Maybe that's it for staff at the moment. Patrick, are you here? Or... Oh, okay.
I believe Mount Lake Terrace has a vacancy
Yep.
in Laura Reed's former position, so that may be an open position at the moment.
We do have some guests here as well. Would the guests from the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Stream Initiative like to say hello and introduce themselves?
Yes, hello, I'm Brian Saunders. I'm a Lake Forest Park resident, and I've been here all my life, and I'm here to present with the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation, which is an environmental nonprofit group that's been running since 1998, and I've brought with me one of my students from North Seattle College, Alex Cordova. Take it over.
Hi, I'm Alex Cordova, a student at North Seattle College, and I've been volunteering with the Stream Keepers as part of their Urban Stream Ecology internship training program for about 4 months now, I think, maybe 5. Yeah, I guess that's it for introductions.
Great, welcome. We have some guests here from WashDOT as well, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Paget. I'm the Public Information Officer with WashDOT, focusing on pre-design projects, and I'm here with 2 of my colleagues. I'll toss it over to Brendan.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Brendan Byron. I'm an assistant project engineer with one of WashDOT's fish passage design offices, based out of Shoreline, so just right down the road from y'all. Thanks for having us. Mark, did you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mark Quinian, WashDOT project manager for the I-5 McAleer Creek Fish Passage project, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Great, welcome everyone. Is there anyone else that wants to say hello? Pat, do you want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm Patrick Johnson. I am the stormwater technician with the City of Edmonds, and just have a little bit to say in a little bit.
Wonderful, welcome everyone.
Hi, I'll just jump in real quick. I'm Trisha Schoblum with Department of Ecology. I'm out of the Shoreline office. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. If you're not speaking, and would you please mute yourself? That would be great. Thank you. Anyone else want to say hello? All right, well, welcome everybody. I think we can maybe start with our first presentation, and that is going to be from the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Stream Initiative, Stewardship Foundation. So if you two want to take it away, I will stop sharing my screen.
All right, let me see if I can share my screen. Is this working? Can everybody see my screen?
Looks good.
That's good. Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm Brian Saunders, and I'm from the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation. I also teach biology and environmental science, oceanography at North Seattle and Shoreline Community College. And because about a year and a half ago, we applied for the King County Waterworks program to analyze a more in-depth look at our streams in Lake Forest Park, the big watersheds is the McAleer Creek watershed as well as the Lion Creek watershed. And I applied mainly because I wanted to get students involved, because I have a great carousel of students every year that all want to do more. They all want to get involved in research, but I just haven't really had the springboard to really do that. So we were fortunate enough and very lucky enough to get some money from the King County Waterworks program. And we developed the Stewardship Stream Initiative, which is the beginning of what we call the Use It program, which is the Urban Stream Ecology Internship program for students to get some research in water quality methods, how to analyze water quality, how to just look at inputs and outputs and adverse effects and what we can do to try to mitigate for that or restore them. So just a real quick background, as I mentioned, the King County Works. The LFP Streamkeepers, though, which is sort of a subset of the Stewardship Foundation, has been basically running since the early 2000s. In fact, my father was one of the beginning founding members, which is kind of fun to think about. And it's been running testing water quality even as today. In fact, we're going out this weekend. But we started in earnest to really use some more chemical tests and probably more rigid tests using the Snow King watershed water watch methods in 2015. And we basically had a really good idea of what was going on in the main creeks, the main Lion Creek and McAleer Creek. But no one had any idea what was going on in all these smaller creeks. So if you look at this sort of map that sort of outlines the main watershed here of McAleer Creek and Lion Creek, you can see there's all these little tributaries that branch off and unite and enter into the big watersheds at some point in time. And we have no idea what the water quality is for these. So that was sort of the focus question for what I did when I applied for the Waterworks program. And that was just something that I thought was really fun and unique. And we then sort of adopted through the Department of Ecology, which has a pretty good system for quantifying the health of creeks through their water quality index with the different kinds of parameters. And in particular, these 8 parameters are the ones that they really hone in on: the temperature, the pH, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, total suspended solids, total phosphorus and nitrogen, and E. coli in colonies, fecal colonies per 100 mils. And by gathering all the data, you can then plug them into looks like a fairly complicated algorithm that they have that can then give you a quantifiable water quality score that ranges from 0 to 100. And of course, the demarcations of the different scores will tell you whether your creek is in poor shape, or it's in moderate shape, or if it's actually in fairly good shape. So it's just a great way for us to get students into analyzing these methodologies, and I'll have Alex talk more about what he's experienced so far. But it's been also a great way to quantify how these individual smaller tributaries are adversely affecting the main creeks. And even though we're in the preliminary results, we've only got about 4 months worth of data right now. We've already seen some pretty cool things. This is a classic, an example I put here of the actual Excel file that Department of Ecology has that you plug in your date and all your data, and then you have these little algorithms that you can calculate. And you can see that they give you a score, and that score is giving you a key on the upper right-hand corner there. And the great thing about this type of analysis is, first of all, it gives you a monthly score, so you can see what's going on per month. It also gives you an overall score, but then it also gives you a score of what each individual category that you measure, of the 8 parameters that you measure. So you can kind of really identify what are the individual parameters that are the most adverse. And one of the things that we're really starting to realize in our observations, our very early observations, is that the creeks are not equal. Many of these smaller tributaries are definitely more adversely affecting macular and line main watersheds than others. And we can actually point a little bit more to what individual parameters are the most significant. So it's been a very fun opening beginning, but it is very early in our program. And as we're all going to meet. Actually, our whole group is meeting this weekend to go over our results together. There's actually 12 students in all, and each student has. I think I've got a map here. Yeah, I've got a map here. So this is well, first of all, I'll just say we got 12 students, each of them doing, which are broken up into 3 different groups. The groups are then consisting of 4 to 5 students, or 3 to 4 students, and they each have anywhere from 5 to 6 smaller tributaries that they're analyzing, or smaller parts of those tributaries that they're analyzing. And the great thing is, once when we get our data, we are of course working with the Snow King watershed, which uses the ARC what is it, the ARC Survey 123 system, where you can actually plug your data into a map. And right now the map doesn't really mean much because I haven't really made them into a significant thing, but all these blue dots you're seeing are all the sites that we're doing on the for the internship. And the colored dots that you're seeing is what the stewardship has already been done, or the stream keepers have already done, and we've already got our sort of hot map of what those all mean already kind of labeled. But we're going to be labeling all these little blue flags as well, based on what the students are finding. And I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Let me continue on. So this is what happens when, this is where we go. So if you click on, sorry, let me back up. If you click on one of these blue little flags, it'll take you directly to the ArcGIS Survey 123 system, and it gives you this wonderful little spread out. So this is all available to the public. It gives you direct data feed from what's going on with the pH, the DO, the turbidity, all the things that are affecting it. And what's going to be great is that we have a large group of students that are now going to be presenting their results at the University of Washington Undergraduate Research Symposium in May, just to kind of give them their preliminary results. And perhaps I've talked too much, and I'll let Alex now go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, hi. So I'm again Alex Cordova, one of the students working as an intern in this program, and I've been in the McAleer watershed doing sites for 2 of the groups. Actually, I did some independent research on one of the other sets, and so what we've been doing is we've been going out. We have a multi-parameter water quality probe that measures pH, temperature, turbidity, dissolved oxygen. And then we have a colorimeter that we use for measuring suspended solids. And alongside reagent testing, we do colorimetric testing for nitrates and phosphates as well. And we recently adopted a new protocol for phosphates that's a lot more specific. If you saw on that spreadsheet on the last page, it was reporting a 1 for the phosphates, which is alarmingly high, but that's really more of a side effect of our original testing being relatively low precision. But yeah, so once a month we all get out as a group and we get to collaborate and get all this data collected, and it's really fundamentally different from the canned science that we kind of do in classes a lot of the time, which really gives it a very distinct feel compared to like a lot of what I have experienced in before. So it's been really exciting going out, not knowing what we're going to find and not knowing what the conclusions are going to be ahead of time. And we found some really interesting things. I've done some preliminary analysis on some of these numbers, and we see that the tributaries, they carry down a lot of suspended solids and turbidity along with that, as well as low oxygen waters come down some of these streams, especially ones that have a lot of decaying organic matter along the way. And yeah, overall, we are picking out just a lot of interesting data, and we're getting a lot of experience that I don't think we get in just pursuing a normal degree. I'm currently pursuing a biochemistry degree, and this has been a really welcome addition to my work.
No, we're open to any questions if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask. I can stop sharing my screen too.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Alex. That was really interesting. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. No worries.
Well, I'll go ahead and ask, what do you see as sort of the next steps for how this research could be used?
Well, well, first of all, one of the things that I'm going to mention to my group on Saturday is that we've sort of done the preliminary work for the base analysis, but really the crucial months and what if I understand the water quality assessment that the Department of Ecology puts out, it's really geared towards analyzing the most crucial months, which are when salmon are present, which is going to be September, October, November. So to carry this through and then seeing how these same numbers that you just saw might be great during January, but in a different month, like in September month, they might actually give you a different score from what I understand about how this whole thing works. So we're really projecting that this is a 2-year project, and we're really going to be looking forward to a better way of looking at what areas are, as I mentioned, the most adverse to water quality salmon and for salmon in particularly, and then maybe thinking about what are the mitigation strategies we can do within those tributaries with those citizens, and having their streams running through their backyard that we can actually then start to move towards, just overall better water quality. Because we have noticed that over the years, McAleer Creek has been slowly declining in their actually water quality scores.
Yeah.
Lion Creek's been slowly going up, but I think that's because Lion Creek had a really tumultuous past. I think Lion Creek really got the hell beat out of it, and now it's kind of in a recovery mode with all the new ordinances that go in with building codes. But I think this data could be fundamentally fantastic for city planners to really, and for us as an organization to get citizens involved. It's amazing how citizens of Lake Forest Park want to be involved. They just don't know how. And if they knew that the creek running in their backyard was in trouble because of some of the things that are going on, maybe with their neighbors, or I got a feeling that would be a very powerful tool to be able to show them on a map. This is a really hot spot here. So I think that's where my hope is, at least.
Yeah, that's great. And the ability to pinpoint some local things is fantastic. I mean, Shoreline's big, and John Featherstone can be almost everywhere at once, but not everywhere. And if we've got the data saying this particular stream is causing 90%, then we can put what resources we have there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alex,
I'd also like to add that as we collect more data, I've been working on trying to build some regression models using the water quality data to model the effects of distance and confluence on how these parameters change. We're still not quite there yet on the volume of data, but hopefully we will have that much.
thank you
John,
very-
you have your
Oh,
hand
sorry.
raised.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll echo what Councilmember Scully just said in terms of us being an upstream jurisdiction of Lake Forest Park, and we have a bunch of tributary streams or systems that are tributary to LFP streams. You know, LFP is kind of like the downhill neighbor, and so obviously, if you detect water quality concerns that may not be originating from within, the jurisdiction, and I know you're not necessarily city staff, but I think you'll work within that jurisdiction, and we're happy to be partners. We have some of our own monitoring programs and indicators that we're looking at our streams, but not necessarily to the degree of looking at all the smaller tributaries, especially kind of in the west side of LFP and the east side of our jurisdiction. So I'm excited to hear of this effort. I think it's really cool. I know there are salmon in some of those streams that we don't necessarily see up in shoreline on those systems as regularly. So I hope we can hear from you more as you identify some of those parameters. And as stream monitoring and stormwater monitoring just gets more sophisticated, and we understand how some of these pollutants affect aquatic life. I'd love to continue to hear about your work and try to figure out how we can be a good upstream partner. So I don't really have any actual questions, I guess. I just wanted to say thanks for doing this work, and I think it's really neat. I think it aligns with a lot of stuff we do in shoreline too.
Yeah, and I thank you for reminding me about that, John, because one of the things that I mentioned about how citizens really want to get involved. It's just wonderful to know that I think all the neighboring cities are really attentive to this issue, and that's so key because, like you said, we're downstream from you guys, so it's nice to know that neighbors are equally concerned and equally vigilant in doing something about it. It's really helpful. And I think Tracy was probably going to mention something about using the data as new culverts get put in. I don't know if he was going to mention that or not, but I see his hand is up.
Yeah, thanks, and really appreciate your presentation and wonderful work that both you and Alex are doing. And I appreciate the comments that Councilmember Scully and John made about the use of this data. I guess this is an open-ended question. You don't have to answer because you may not know the answer. But I'm really glad that we're talking about this interface between the nonprofits generating these kind of data sets and then the cities using them to basically develop policy. And I guess the question is, what would facilitate that exchange of information? Because I love the fact that you have this publicly available data. But of course, we have folks who aren't here from Mount Lake Terrace and from Briar and places like that. They could probably also benefit from the data. What's the best way that a city could facilitate being able to use this information?
Is that an open? I don't.
Yes, I don't need an answer, but basically it's something to think about for sure. All of us.
No, I would. I mean, if I had a dream world, yeah. I mean, this would be actionable data that we could then put forth some great policies to, talk to people about, limitations for, stream side developments and that good stuff. Protecting our waterways is probably. I think the big picture that is often missed is how stream water quality affects everybody in the city. It's not just the people who live on the creek. It's an absolute showing how the whole health of the system directly affects people's longevity. It affects their moods, their depression. It's all part of the same system. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer to your question, Tracy, but it is one that I think it'd be wonderful to see actionable data, like actual deliverables getting utilized.
Thanks.
John, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a crack at just a little perspective shoreline on using the data and sort of how do we work it fit it into our program. So we do some of our own internal monitoring. We also sometimes receive data from other third parties who are either maybe students or volunteer groups. And so I would say, data are data. Nothing's perfect, right? It's hard sometimes to sort of parse things out and figure out, is this a background issue with the creek? Where's this coming from? How much control over these things do we have? Dissolved oxygen is one that's sort of infamous, I think. And again, as a non-stream scientist, but who's dabbled a little bit, is dissolved oxygen is typically really low, and it's hard to fix that kind of thing without it's not something that you could just sort of eliminate a source of pollution, as far as I'm aware of. But for instance, we do use the data sometimes to try to determine if there's an illicit discharge or an illicit connection. Sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes not, right? You get a coliform spike and you're like, where did this bacteria come from? Sometimes you can find it, sometimes you can't, but it's very useful programmatically, I think, to consult those sources. With more sophisticated monitoring, you get more sophisticated results and things that might be more useful towards, nutrients or other loads that are getting into your systems. So they do certainly have the ability to inform your programmatic work. But it's, I would say, just sort of one tool in the toolbox out of many from a stormwater management perspective. But it certainly doesn't hurt to have data, even if you're not entirely sure how accurate or sort of repeatable it is. It's always good to have. So I would encourage sharing and spreading the word, because it's great to know. Otherwise, we're totally in the dark, right? You just don't even know.
Yeah, one thing that I've been advocating for kind of loosely is opening up a read connection to the database, because as it is right now, the GIS data can only be viewed through the dashboard. And I think it'd be valuable to both us and other municipalities and other groups if they could extract the data as a full data set to process however they like. Because it's rather difficult to get it into, say, an Excel file if you just want to make some pivot tables or something as it is.
Yeah, good point.
Very interesting discussion. Anything else that comments or questions to add before we move on to our next topic? Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian and Alex. We really appreciate your time and the slides and all the information. It's great work
Thanks
you're
for
doing
having
too.
us.
Yeah. So next up on our agenda are our friends at WashDOT, and they have a small presentation that they're going to do for us. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Everyone can see my screen, right? Yeah, good. Okay. Hi again, my name is Lauren Paget. I'm the Public Information Officer for Projects and Design at WashDOT. This is just an overview of a project that we're working on, and I'm here with Brendan, who's going to go in depth about what to expect. And so I guess to start out, we're just going to go through a quick agenda of what WashDOT's philosophy is, why we're doing this work, how it's going to happen, and then some design and discussion for y'all to consider. So during a project from start to finish, our guiding philosophy is no surprises. So that means engaging early with the community. And so thank you so much for having us today. We hope to bring back some of the discussion to our project team and continue to work towards breaking ground and construction, which will be in a few years. We have no surprises through the project. So this is a design build project that we're discussing. Project engineers engage with various municipal, county, and state groups. I'm part of a team of communicators that set up meetings like this, open houses, and create other project collateral. And when we have a design builder, they get this no surprises training as well. And so we try to maintain a level of communication with everyone who is interested parties through construction and pre-design all the way to the end. And now I'll hand things over to Brendan to kind of go over this specific project.
Sounds great. Thanks, Lauren, and thanks everyone for having us again. So for this section of the presentation, we're going to go through our project overview, what our funding and our timeline looks like at this point, why we're doing this work, and also getting into how we're doing the work, giving you a basic overview of our conceptual design that we have at this point. Next slide. All right, so our McAleer Creek Fish Passage underneath I-5 is part of a design build project bundle, which consists of 3 total culverts that need to be replaced with fish passable structures. 2 of those are on McAleer Creek, which are the ones that we're going to hone in on today. One of them is also on Scriber Creek under SR 524 up in Linwood. And another thing to note, when we last presented at this forum, there was another fish passage location that was on this project bundle. It was SR 522 Thornton Creek down in Seattle in Lake City. That project has since been removed from this bundle. It'll still be carried out, but it has levels of complexity that have caused us to decide to use a different delivery method rather than bundling it with these other 2 locations. So that's one of our updates for you this afternoon. Next slide. So our project funding and timeline. At this point, we're estimating a total cost for design, right-of-way, and construction of about $82 million for the 3 culverts. Currently, we have about 17 million of that funded for our design and right-of-way phases. So designing our project to 30%, which is what we typically do for design build, as well as acquiring any right-of-way for the project, whether that be through temporary easements, permanent easements, or full-out property purchasing. At the moment, the construction phase of our project is not currently funded, but we're carrying on with our design as if it will be. At the moment with the state, you're probably aware there's a bit of a funding issue at the moment. So right at this time, the legislature is working and deciding which projects to prioritize. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll figure out what sort of time frame we actually have for this project. So currently our tentative timeline, we would have our proposals coming in from our design builder in the summer of 2027. And then following that, we would have about 2 months where we would evaluate such proposals and determine the apparent best value and award the project to the design builder. That would likely be sometime in the fall of 2027. Once the project's awarded, the design builder will take over the design from where we left off. So as I said before, we typically design build projects to about 30% design, and then allow the design builder to make changes within our standards. And excuse me, sorry, my camera's going out of focus. I will fix that. As I was saying, they take over the design from 30% and are allowed to make innovations within our standards, as well as with the permission of local agencies that they'll be coordinating with. So there'll be a bit of time where they're primarily focusing on their design, and that's why we say that construction may begin on I-5 or on SR 524 Scriber Creek in the spring of 2028. It'll be up to the design builder how they choose to sequence these crossings. For all we know, they could choose to construct them at once if they wanted to. It all comes down to what they deem to be the most efficient. And then the time frame for construction, we would see both crossings finished in late 2030, and that's assuming our funding goes through. I think we're ready for the next slide. So why are we doing this work? Replacing the 3 structures on our project will help create habitat for fish to lay eggs and for rearing of juveniles before they migrate down to Puget Sound. Between the 2 major locations, McAleer Creek and Scriber Creek, we're looking at opening access to around 5.86 miles of habitat benefiting Chinook salmon, sockeye, coho, coastal cutthroat, and steelhead trout. As you can see below, we've got a couple of images here. These are slightly dated. They're straight from the Department of Fish and Wildlife's database. The one on the left is showing where the culvert under I-5 daylights on the east side of I-5 downstream. And then the next one is where the second culvert daylights, which is on the south side of the northeast cloverleaf of the SR 104 I-5 interchange. So the one to the left looks a little bit different right now because Sound Transit has since gone through that area and built their guideway. So there's currently some landscape restoration going on in that area. And once we're done with the project, we will likely be restoring the vegetation and whatnot in that area as well. Next slide. So next we're going to go into our conceptual design overview. I'm going to start off by just kind of explaining the existing condition based on this image that we have here. So starting in the upper left corner, you can see McAleer Creek going through the Nile Shriner golf course coming from the lake. Then when it gets to I-5, it currently goes into that corrugated metal culvert in that dashed yellow line, which is the structure that we would be replacing. The new structure would be a big deal wider, most likely precast concrete, and located slightly to the south of the existing structure as shown in the photo. When it daylights on the other side, there's a section of stream that we would be restoring between that culvert and the next one, which goes underneath the cloverleaf interchange as I described on the last slide. Before it goes through the underneath the cloverleaf, an unnamed tributary to McAleer Creek approaches from the east. This is another change to the project since we last presented. Previously, there were actually 3 culverts at this location that we were going to be replacing. Since then, it's been determined that the culvert for the unnamed tributary does not fall under the injunction criteria. For the main reason being that the injunction requires us to replace culverts that go underneath state-owned roadways. This culvert in particular, although it traverses quite a bit of our right-of-way, it actually goes under a city maintenance road. And underneath that city maintenance road, there is a sewer line. So by consulting with the tribes as well as the Department of Ecology, they agreed that this particular crossing does not need to be in this project. Thankfully, it's not a huge impact on salmon habitat in this area. I believe the figure that we had upstream of this particular culvert for the unnamed tributary was only a few hundred feet of salmon habitat, so not much of a loss compared to the roughly 30,000 feet that we would be restoring access to with this project. So a little bit of information on how we would be constructing this project. Most likely what you would see is lane shifts, both on mainline I-5 as well as on the cloverleaf section. So most likely what we would be doing, and I say this most likely because as I mentioned before, the design builder can alter the design and choose to construct things in the way that they would deem more efficient. So at the moment we were envisioning having our construction staging occurring on the east side of I-5, since we're already going to be restoring the stream in that area, and slowly working our way across mainline I-5. So we would shift traffic over to the west a little bit, excavate down into the roadway, plop a piece of culvert in, return traffic to that location, and then do the same thing as you move piecewise from east to west underneath I-5. At this point, we have not determined whether there will be any lane reductions on either direction of I-5. It all comes down to the constructability and how much space is actually going to be needed for that excavation work in the roadway. Very similar approach will be taken, although probably in only 2 sections or so on the cloverleaf, where we would shift traffic either down to the south first and then up to the north first and construct that culvert piecewise there. I believe that's all I have for this slide, and I'll pass it on back to Lauren. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Just a reminder that we are having a busy year this year with construction. We have nearly 100 projects coming up in 25 and 26. Those include preservation fish projects, pothole repair, safety emphasis, and it's all kind of being exacerbated by return to traffic, return to work, people hitting the roads, especially as the weather gets nicer. And so we just invite you to stay up to date with us. Follow us on X, formerly Twitter. We are also on Blue Sky. We are doing a 6-month pilot program right now, but you can find us there too. We are on washdot.wa.gov. You can sign up for our travel alerts and any updates on this project. And just kind of going to open it up to some questions. And if you have any questions further after this, you can always reach me and I can get in touch with Brendan. So I just want to maybe open it up to some questions and see if you guys have anything you'd like to chat about. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Oh, go ahead. I see Tracy.
Oh, no, I was just going to just generally thank people for a great presentation. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Brendan, for a wonderful presentation. I just had one question, which was that, we've been, combined with the previous presentation, I'm wondering what sort of monitoring is going to go on, or is that going to be farmed out by the design builder to a consultant or something?
So typically following a design build contract, there is a monitoring period following construction where the design builder is responsible. So that would transfer some of the risks that there may be associated with their construction to them to ensure that they have a good product after construction. Following that, I believe for McAleer Creek in particular, because it goes underneath our right of way, the monitoring would be the responsibility of the state. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, once we get closer to the time, I'll do a follow-up on what the extent of the monitoring is and how far down and how long.
And that'll be written into our RFP as well. So once we get to that proposal phase that I was talking about earlier in the presentation, that should be solidified.
We also plan to hold an essential services briefing as we get closer to breaking ground and starting construction. So you'll hear from us again in a couple of years as soon as when it gets to the point where we need to start talking about it with the public and getting people prepared. We're going to have a lot more meetings building up to that point as well.
This is John from Shoreline. I have a question, and maybe this is a crystal ball kind of question, but I think some of the dates you gave were pending funding. And I'm curious with the state budget, also knowing that there's some other mandates at play here with WashDOT doing this work. And, I guess, is there a sense that if the state budget does not allocate funding, could this be delayed? And if so, is there sort of a maximum delay that you could expect? Is this just sort of a whole bucket of unknowns? I'm just curious about how, on the WashDOT side of things, you're approaching that uncertainty, with scheduling and funding and stuff like that. As much as you can, tell us or whatever.
Yeah, it's a big unknown right now. I'll be honest. We are just waiting for the legislative session to sort of give us some more answers in terms of funding and priority. So right now, as we work, even though we're not heading towards, a construction date, we are building to the point where if we have to stop work, we can immediately pick it back up, and once funding is there, we keep going on it. So at this point, we can't really say. It's just going to take some time and to understand what comes out of the session, which I think ends next month, I think. So yeah, it's a little bit, it's hard. I mean, from the federal state level, I mean, there's a lot of change right now with funding and especially with federal funding. So we're trying to figure out different issues as they come up.
So it sounds like, if I heard and understood, it might kind of move in fits and starts depending on how much funding is available when. Is there a possibility that this could get cut for lack of funding, or is it really just sort of a matter of time, how long it will take to get there?
These specific sites are part of an injunction, the Supreme Court injunction with the state that was a few years ago that said we are required to fix culverts with the tribes. And so it's been a long a long journey trying to figure out and prioritize. And a lot of these projects, like the Thornton Creek one, like Brendan mentioned, got moved out because it's a little too complicated and it needs a different set of eyes. So these are all projects that have been identified as need to do and that are going to be valuable for the fish passage program. But it is hard to say right now what the priority is going to be in terms of construction, but we are trying to keep in mind what is most valuable and the areas that can potentially give the most gain. And we work really close. We go on site a lot. I know Brendan can talk about going down there and taking a look at things, and they just it's about what we can do the most with our time at this point. But it's all a priority and it's all on the list to get done. So nothing is going to get canceled, or it would probably get pushed further down the road, if anything.
Yes, most likely a delay more than anything. I know that the state is currently talking with the tribes because of the concern of the 2030 date looming. We just don't know what that prioritization is going to look like. I mean, looking at McAleer Creek in particular and looking at the DFW fish passage map, it's pretty cool to look upstream from our location and see that there are tons of barriers that have been corrected. So this one's a pretty high impact one, especially considering the amount of resources that need to go into it. I mean, we're cutting under 10 lanes of traffic to open up about 4 miles of fish habitat on that location alone. So I hope they prioritize this one. It's a big one, but it has big gain too. And not all of our locations are like this.
Thank you.
Thank you both. That was a really great presentation. Does anyone have any further questions or comments or thoughts? Okay. Going to go back to our agenda. Over here, can everyone see the agenda? Okay, great. Yeah, really, really good presentations. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Do we have update from anyone on the staff, wet season impacts within the watershed?
Katie, I'll just cover really quickly for shoreline. I would say, as far as I'm tracking, really no news is good news. I guess we haven't had, a sort of, I'm going to knock on some wood, but we haven't had any sort of major flooding event. We've seen, we had a prolonged algae issue at Echo Lake, which I think has, I think it cleared up earlier this winter, but we had some very opaque green water in Echo Lake for much later than we wished we would have. But some positive signs are that some of the stormwater monitoring we're doing around the Echo Lake watershed seems to be looking good. So some of our source control program approaches seem to have been successful, or at least thus far are looking pretty good within Echo Lake. We're potentially going to be looking to do some chemical treatment to manage algae within Echo Lake. Not this year, but I think potentially next year. Just to sort of get some initial controls on the algae. That's a little speculative, but that's kind of what we're currently thinking. And elsewhere in the McAleer Creek watershed, I don't think we have a whole lot of updates other than I think we pulled some debris out of the creek just downstream of that cloverleaf area that we saw with WashDOT a few weeks ago, but I don't think it was considered a major source of pollution or flooding or anything like that. Just some sort of, somebody had dumped an old piece of foam or something in the creek. I think that's it. I know there's other shoreline staff on this call. I don't know I think I saw Zach and Stefan. I don't know if either of you have any other updates for the forum, anything I might have missed.
None from me.
Yeah, I think you covered everything I could think of.
Okay, well, I guess I think that covers shoreline's part then.
I'll just go ahead and take it from John. This is Patrick from the City of Edmonds. And I wish things in Edmonds were as clean and tidy as they were in Shoreline this round. But unfortunately, we have had a rather significant issue on the lake regarding a sewage spill. So back in March, I believe it was March 12th, our public works stormwater crews were doing general maintenance on the storm system up on Highway 99. And during those inspections, they came across a rather significant sewage spill, if you will, or release. And upon tracking it down to the outfall of the lake, it was determined that pretty significant amount of the sewage was detected in the lake itself, and may have been there for maybe up to a week. So with testing, we did 7 rounds of testing on the lake to test for E. coli, with the highest reading being 874 coliform or coliform fecal units per 100 milliliters, and the 7th round got it down to 11 CFUs. So that's, a tribute to the cleaning that our public works put in to clean the entire system from Highway 99 down to the lake. And then the lake essentially just taking care of itself and dissipating. I don't have any reports from the Mount Lake Terrace side, so I don't know how it impacted the entire lake in a sense, but the west side of the lake was impacted for a short amount of time, maybe a week or 2 before we had to pull. So we posted signs, safety signs, and warning lake goers and local residents of the impact to the lake. And after about a week, we did pull those signs with the testing limits being lowered. So we don't know where the sewage originated from. We did find it up by a condominium complex up on Highway 99. However, TVing the system with cameras and wasn't able to track down exactly where that came from. So that's frustrating for us as the city, as we don't know where it came from or whether it will happen again. Could have been from somebody dumping, or just an undetected cross connection somewhere. So we're keeping an eye on it. We'll probably periodically test the lake still leading up to the spring and summer season to make sure that the lake levels look good. But yeah, so not great news, but like I said, the latest testing results show significant progress. So if you have anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay. A little bit better news. I've been speaking of an abandoned house. The address is actually 7317 Lake Ballinger Way. It sits on the south end of the lake, and it has been we'll call it a dilapidated property for some time now, probably upwards of 3 to 4 years. In recent months, we have had it fenced off and brush cut to eliminate squatters and people that have made a mess of the property while it's being purchased by the city. The real estate deal has gone through. The city has purchased the property, and it's looking like next month the demolition of the old house will occur, and basically removing the housing structure and all the debris on the property, as well as fallen trees and old vegetation. And we're going to basically restore that minus the original foundation of the house, and let nature just take that property back over. There will be plans in the future to continue to redevelop it, but for the time being, the demolition of a very what we'd consider a safety and eyesore is going to be taken care of. Next forum meeting, I hope to have some pictures of before, during, and after of what all this looks like. But this is positive news for many of the neighbors who live on the south end, and residents who do care about the environmental impacts of what would be considered a delinquent house on the list. So it's real positive news coming from Edmonds that way. And my last update would be that on the City of Edmonds website, we do track the water level of the lake during all 4 seasons, and it does fluctuate. That lake monitor did go down for a period of months during where we had to do repairs on the monitor. But you can now go back to the City of Edmonds website, and under one of the tabs there, you can find the Lake Ballinger water level monitor, and you can reference that. So currently we do have a fair amount of storage in the lake, even with all the rains we've had recently. But it's like we're going to dry out a little bit, and our lake level should drop even more. But we are looking good right now. We made it through the rainy season more or less. Although some residents around the lake could probably chime in a little better than I could and explain what they saw this winter. But otherwise, we're looking good heading into spring. So if anybody has any questions, fire away. I see Niall out there.
Yeah, Pat, could you say more about the city's future development plans for that abandoned house location? What are they thinking of putting in there?
We're looking to now. This is early, obviously, but we would like to be able to treat stormwater coming off of Lake Ballinger Way, ideally. This is a ways off, but with the city purchasing the property, we are looking, because there are 2 outfalls that do run from Lake Ballinger Way down either through or right next to that property. We would like to treat that stormwater before it actually hits the lake. That would be a goal of ours, and we'd probably be looking to consult in that in the future years.
Thanks. Wonderful.
Yeah. Again, this won't be essentially public property to use, like boat launches or kayak launches or anything like that. This will be a city-owned property. We may or may not leave a fence up to deter people while it's kind of finding its way back to nature and being redeveloped. So until then, you'll have to use the west side boat launch in Edmonds or the east side park in Mount Lake Terrace. This would not be a public launching point for any watercraft.
Thank you, Pat, for all those updates.
Sure.
Thank you, John, for your updates as well. And we can move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. If there are any public comments, or if yes.
Actually, I do have one other question for Pat. Pat, there was some email recently about algae levels in the lake at the moment. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. So I got an email from Warren. I don't know if Warren's on the call today, but Warren McAndrews often sits on these meetings as a lake resident, who also reaches back out to lake residents. And I'm sure you guys have his contact as well.
I'm sitting in for Warren.
Are you sitting in today? Perfect. Okay, detained. Perfect. Yeah. So Warren shot me an email a couple weeks ago, Niall, if I'm correct. And he did mention that he believes, after witnessing the lake for many years now, that the late winter, early spring algae levels looked significant amount more than usual. Now, were they blue-green algae or detrimental to the environment? It wasn't tested, nor did Warren let me know that it looked like that. But we are noticing, and maybe it's the Snohomish County lakes did offer their thoughts, and it was just a mild winter. And it was a mild kill off of the vegetation, and it could have possibly led to additional algae blooms this late winter, early spring. So, but that is a good reminder that if lake residents or recreational users do see algae blooms on the lake, to let either City of Edmonds or the City of Mount Lake Terrace know, so we can assess that and test that those algal blooms if warranted. We can run those down to a Seattle laboratory and get those tested and get those results back ASAP. So, but we can't test what we don't know, so we do rely on lake residents significantly for this.
Yeah, I'd actually like to add to that. During my examination of some of these streams downstream of Lake Ballinger, I also took some algal samples just as we were going, and I was finding a whole lot of oscillatoria and a whole lot of navicula diatoms, which I'm not sure if that's typical for this time of year because I don't have any longitudinal info. But I was finding a lot of them.
English? Could you translate that to English, please, Alex?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so oscillatoria is a blue-green algae, which it's a producer of cyanotoxins if it's disturbed. And I believe it's a nitrogen-fixing one as well. So it will increase bioavailable nitrogen. And then the navicula diatoms are just little photosynthetic plankton, but with their cell walls are made of silicates, so they don't decompose. That's what diatomaceous earth is made of, is the cell walls of these. And they're both considered to be harmful algae or microbiota. I just wanted to contribute that.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Where exactly did you say you tested these? Was this downstream? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is in our the sampling sites for the Use It program. I was just grabbing specimen bottles and throwing them under a microscope. And I was finding these in most of the streams, though especially in areas of slow flow.
It's probably not possible to say that that algae necessarily came from Lake Ballinger, though, right?
No, but it seems, based on the literature that I've read, it seems that these populations tend to be consistent throughout a watershed, but it would require more testing. I'd personally be interested maybe in doing some of this testing myself, but I will look into that on my own time.
Really interesting information. Anyone have any additional comments to add? Or does anyone have any suggestions for topics we'd like to discuss in July?
I will be, this is Patrick again from City of Edmonds. I will be doing a little presentation on the housing demolition project, if you will. So I'll be adding that to the agenda. If anybody else doesn't have anything else pressing they'd like to add.
All right, great. Niall, it looks like you have your hand raised, but if it's just raised from before, I don't want to miss out. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming to our meeting today. If no one has anything else to add, that'll be it. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thanks again to all the presenters. It was a really wonderful meeting.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everybody.
having us.
Cheers, Katie. That was good.
See ya.
Nice job.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Yep.